Thanks very much, Jeff. Hi, everyone. How are we? Hi. I'm a little tall, so I might have to raise this if you don't mind.
We'll pick you up.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
For the camera.
First of all, I just want to say that it's a real honor being here with you this morning. I really honor what Dr. Mzizana and Nondumiso has put together, because as an entrepreneur, and I think as a female entrepreneur, what Allon had to say here is very true. I think that we as women tend to be our own worst enemies. And whilst I will talk about that a little later, I'm hoping that this summit, everything that everyone has to share, particularly what I want to share with you now, I'm hoping that it will connect to part of the journey that you have as entrepreneurs. And I'm going to do that by trying to share what I've done. Essentially, talking about how we've done it it's a very difficult thing because it's a personal journey. It is about your way that you've done it, your mistakes, but there are some very common themes. And maybe what I should just start off by saying is that, I'm Ipileng, as Jeff has introduced me. I started business when I was very young. I was in my 20s, about 23, 24. And I grew up in Natal. I'm the eldest of 3 girls. I was raised by 2 parents who were professionals, who they themselves had their own little corner somewhere in the township doing whatever they were doing. And I think I'm mentioning these things because Allon has just said a lot about the characteristics, the intrinsic things that exist. Some of which I don't agree with, because I'll say my bit, but a lot of which I do agree with. I agree with affirmation of children, 100%. We have to affirm our kids every day. We have to make them understand that they are brilliant human beings. That's how my parents raised me. My parents were 2 individuals, as I said, who were professionals. One ran a little GP and one had a little law firm. And I'm talking about little. I'm talking about these big things that we understand today, ENS and whatever. I'm talking about people who got up every day and went to do what they did, took a case, criminal case, earned very little. Back in the day, black lawyers were not paid much. We didn't even do commercial law. Being a doctor, you worked in your surgery, elokshini, and you had queues of people standing there. So essentially, the concept is getting up in the morning, going to work, working very hard. That's what I saw every day. I saw that alive every day in my parents. I saw people who would go and fill through a tax form, even though I didn't understand what it was. I saw individuals who managed other people, who employed others. Those concepts are quite amazing, and what they create, the foundation they create for the children. But probably the most important concept is that of affirmation. I cannot stress that enough. And I think I was a young girl who believed so much in myself because my parents believed so much in me. And the extended family represented a group of people who were role models in everything that they did. And I think if we can just take that away and begin to understand that entrepreneurship is probably more about the soft issues than it is about the hard issues, that is a truism for me. Okay, so I wanted to say that because there's nothing really, in my view, special about this. There's a formula that you can repeat, and you can repeat it for generations to come. And I think that's why entrepreneurs and young people who've grown up in entrepreneurial homes become that, and are led towards that because they are raised in that way and they're encouraged in that way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my company and what we do, because obviously I want to contextualize. I know the Success Summit is about making sure that we also focus and hone in on the opportunities in particular sectors. I'm an entrepreneur in 2 key sectors, and I'll talk about that. I'm going to focus a lot more on property, but I will share a little bit about what the rest of the group does do, because I think I want to be able to demonstrate as well what that 14-year, I mean, it will be 15 years next year in September, what has it meant to create a business from absolutely nothing, with absolutely no trust fund or any money from anybody other than just your vision and what you want to do. Sorry, that's a little bit small, but really what I'm saying there is that MIH, Motseng Investment Holdings, we're a diversified investment holdings company. We were launched in 1998. In that year, I had launched my business called Poseliso CCTV. I won't bore you about the history of that, but it basically was a business that was into electronic security services. In that same year, in September, my business partner and friend and fellow schoolmate that I went to school with in Maritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal, Sandile Nomvete, approached me and said, I'd like to start a business with you. I see you're doing something. And you know, that was the beginning of what would be Motseng Investment Holdings, September 1998. Essentially, we are a property group. We have a number of service offerings, property management, FM, property investment, public-private partnership, PPPs, we love those, property developments. But we also have this interesting element of our business, which has all been about diversification from the day we started our business in 1998. And that was, when one sector goes bust, we must have something else as backup. And it's been very difficult to be able to manage those things from the beginning. And so what I will say as an entrepreneur is when you start with the focus. You diversify probably 5 to 7 years into your business. You cannot diversify from the beginning. It is impossible, and you will actually fail, in my view. And so the private equity investments business, we actually have a chief investment officer, Bruce Zungu, who we partnered with, and he came into the business in 2007. 98 we started, 2007 we actually brought in somebody to drive this thing. It's 10 years, 9 years. So I'm trying to say to you, much as the diversification story was key, it's something that we had to really work on. The key things about Motseng is that it's managed and owned by black professionals. RMB does own 15% of our business and has done so has owned for about 4 years. We are managed by black professionals with deep operational experience and capacity in the business. That's all we do. We run our own businesses. We have bought into businesses where we have partnered with others, but essentially even there, where that business is a subsidiary, i.e. it's a business that has to be consolidated into the bigger group, into the actual, the AFS, the annual financial statements, we run that business, we own that business, we appoint people in there. If it's an associate business, then we leave that management to do it. We believe in management of businesses. We've grown from 2 professionals to employing over 200 people. We are an organization that basically has about 95% management, which is black South Africans. Over 48%, well, it says 50%, it might be a little out now, of our employee profile are black women. And that is so important to me as a black woman. I sit on ExCo. Our ExCo is 4 people. It's 50% men and 50% women. And I want to ensure in our organization that reflection at the top trickles through to every level, to MD level, to middle management, and to junior management. And what you find in organizations such as ours is that unfortunately the top might look like that, but the middle part doesn't look like that. And so I'm on a drive to really employ more female MDs. The bottom part looks like that because we have a lot of women in support functions and in line management, but I find that the level where you've got more managers who are reporting to a general manager, for instance, we are not moving as quickly as we should, and that's part of my objective. We have assets under management, and now I'm talking about property assets under management are in excess of 12 billion, and we're a level 2 accredited firm purely because RMB owns 15% of our business. What's key, everyone, is, you know, we're an operational business, as I've said. I don't think I would ever be able to invest in someone else's business and not understand how it is run, how we make money, as Allon was saying, how we lose money, what are the key risks, how do we mitigate those risks. We're just not those kind of people. And I think entrepreneurs are built like that. When you're an entrepreneur, you want to get into the heart of the business. We have moved, and I see Motseng as a second generation BEE firm. We've moved away from the first generation black economic empowerment firms and deals, where in 97, 98, when I started as a young woman, we were inspired by the likes of Neil and Jonik and the early transactions that guys did. But you know, essentially those transactions were about massive SPVs with great amounts of debt, with entities that are listed on the stock exchange that are essentially serviced through dividends that would pay out, hopefully over a 10-year income stream. And we know what happens to that. You're not involved in the business, you don't run the business, you actually have no influence over that income stream. And when we started our business, we said we wanted to have influence over everything that happened. We went to venture capitalists, and they turned our back. They turned us away and said, we're not going to loan you money. And that has really been, I think, part of the importance of our success is that we've actually run the business. So the structure of the group kind of looks like this. This is exactly how it is. I'm Chief Operations Officer. I report to my boss, Sandile, who's CEO. Also, together, Sandile and I own majority of the organization. To the left, we have a concessions business, PPPs, Qedani, Mahlangu, the MEC spoke about infrastructure development. We're very proud of the fact that we believe our government has got huge opportunities in this country when it comes to infrastructure development. And I'm talking about public-private partnership, our ability to be able to partner with departments in this country and say, what are your actual needs, whether it's from accommodation to sanitation of water, whatever it might be. And we have a business. MD of that company is a lady called Moloto. She runs a team of about 6 people. And all they do, they're private equity, ex-private equity people, finance managers. They go out there and they look for triple P opportunities. And we currently manage a couple. We invest, we sit at the concession level, and we manage the facility from an FM point of view. Our business is very synergistic. So when we come to property group, we have an FM company, property company. Everything that we do pretty much links into the other. So it's about flexibility. We didn't start in the PPP area. We launched that business 2 years ago. We started in the property group area. And really what we do there is, I don't want to bore you again, but I think the MEC spoke a lot about property management, facilities management, and so forth. It's really the whole property services space. We've been in that space for 10 years now, and we started in a joint venture with Marriott Property Group in 2002. We launched a company called Motseng Property Services. Essentially what we do throughout those 4 entities, excluding Mzizana landscapes, is project management, property management, and FM look at the asset management of the building. From the income generation, collection of leases, paying of rates, paying of taxes, paying of electricity, management of tenants, to the management of their HVAC, life cycle management of their assets in the building, HVAC, electricity, whatever it might be, the plant, down to the project management. So now an owner says, I want to develop this asset. I'll give you an example. Pavilion Shopping Centre in Durban, the extension, every extension we have done, or the owners have done in that centre, the owners are Perito, PIC, we have led that extension from a project management point of view. We have coordinated the professionals as MPM. We ensure that the landlord is delivered with proper income growth or yield growth in terms of their property deliverables to their owners. And we are the small guys on the ground who make sure that, yes, now we want to bring Zara, where we're going to put Zara. That's basically what we do. And then our guys go and talk to Zara and say, Zara, we want you as a tenant here. So it's really the full service element of property. It's not going to make you rich. That much I can tell you. So we got into a space early on to understand and to learn what people do in property because we loved it. And I suppose where I'm different from Allon is I believe you do have to have passion. I actually believe you actually need to love what you do. Where I do agree with him though is, you know, a lot of the people we employ are people who love what they do. Either love working with others, love a building. I have people in our office who just love buildings. I love the fact that it's a building, it's a tangible asset. I'm not talking about gold that is deep in the ground. And you think it's crazy, but I want to employ and work with people who truly love what they do because they do amazing things. Russell Simmons recently said at a function that Destiny put together, where passion meets preparation, it's amazing what happens. And where you're passionate, you don't worry about the money. You worry about the good delivery of what you do because you want it to be amazing. You want it to be the best. And I believe passion must come into it. And my passion is, as Ipileng, I want to see people grow. I want to see, particularly women. I have had the honor of working with young women who have left our employ, started up their own companies, and have come back to say, Sis Ipileng, this is where I am now. This is what I'm doing. And we'll say, let's work with you. Let's provide you with some kind of service. That's actually what gets me up in the morning. It's the ability to say, sure, we're seeing people grow, we're seeing people evolve, and maybe less about the structures and so forth. And then we have a strategic investment business. It's essentially our private equity, I would call it quasi-private equity business. We've got investments in those companies. And then what we did in 2008, we said as a business, you know, we can be a property manager and all of these other things. We're never really going to have great influence on a landlord for as long as we are at the mercy of the landlord. What we need to do is we need to become a landlord. And we need to begin to influence this whole transformation space within the property sector. I'm very glad that the MEC actually spoke about that, because this is what I want to focus on. One of the areas I want to focus on, particularly for entrepreneurs in this country, is the opportunities that exist in this sector, and how a company like Motseng in a 14-year span could evolve from a property manager to a property owner. So in the property investment side of our business, what we essentially do is we buy assets. Very difficult to do 14 years ago. We had to create a balance sheet. We actually had to be able to raise a level of either debt or equity against that balance sheet. We had to also create equity within our business to be able to contribute towards any debt that we wanted to raise with any funding house. And we had to create track record. So those things are fundamentals that essentially when you do go to an institution, they need to be able to believe in your story. And essentially we are very blessed with the fact that we have been able to acquire a number of assets. So we are a commercial landlord. We have a commercial property portfolio that has 92% SARS and government as a tenant, 72% SARS and government, 22% SARS itself, and I think about 9% that is actually retail, Woolworths, Aircon, and so forth. And we intend to change the profile of that particular tenancy profile. We would like to see ourselves move more into retail and less commercial, and have a balance between the two. What's the long-term drive? The long-term drive is the sustainability of the growth of this business, and the synergistic ability for property investments to rely on property services to collect rent, and property and Motseng facilities management to manage their asset. So you see that we've hopefully tried to create a business that will live beyond us, and that's been a big part of our own drive as owners. So let's talk a little bit about the sector. We're talking about a broad sector, and I've just broken it up into 3 levels. You've got the listed part of property sector. You've got very much your unlisted, which is your commercial, retail, industrial, residential, which is public and private. I'm putting government in there as well, which is the largest landlord, as I'm sure all of us know that. And then you've got residential. A lot of people, when I talk to them, they say, oh, are you an estate agent? And it's important to educate us. We're not an estate agent, but estate agents fall within the broader ambit of the property sector. So they're governed by the EAAB, which is the Estate Agencies Affairs Board. The commercial sector is governed by a number of different organizations, one of which is SAPOA. And essentially, you know, when we talk about the sector, I'm trying to show you how broad it is. When you talk about the PUTs or PLSs at the listed sector, essentially those are just vehicles, property unit trust or property loan stock companies. And what those are listed vehicles that investors or promoters put together a number of properties. I'll give you a number of names of ones you might know. Jeff spoke about Rebosis. Rebosis recently listed on the PLS, as a PLS I should say, on the JSE, I think 2 years ago. What is that? It's essentially a structure where you take, I don't want to get too technical, but you take 2 types of unit holder or units, and essentially you've got a debt structure linked to a normal share structure, and what you list is properties, and then you go and say to investors, do you want to come and take 1 million units in my actual property portfolio? And what will happen is you'll raise a whole lot of money with different investors, and that's basically what Rebosis has done. Rebosis is one of the few, among probably about 4 or 5, Dipula, Ascension, Bonani, black-owned, or rather largely black-managed property companies on the stock exchange. And that's a huge thing for the transformation of the property sector in our country. Because what you're seeing more and more is that property owners are saying, you know, much as we want to continue this wonderful ability for us to go and buy more and more assets, we need to be able to list them so that we have access to capital. So while some people might say, but hang on, you are diluting black ownership because access to capital means more white people are buying into your assets. Unfortunately, that's the reality. What you're saying is, no, but if you manage the assets and you manage all the downstream activities as a black company, hopefully you're still able to maintain that. So it's a very broad sector, okay? What are the opportunities that exist for you as entrepreneurs? I think they are immense. I really believe that they are immense. And if any entrepreneur here today is sitting and saying, sure, how do I access Qedani MEC Mahlangu's opportunities? You need to begin to understand where it is that your strength lies and your interest lies. So either you're going to be an investor, and I would say that if you're a startup entrepreneur right now, you're not starting there because that needs a huge amount of money. Or you could be, truth, or you could be at the level of a professional or a service company. Why I'm putting this slide up is because this is where we started. We were a service company. That's all that we were 14 years ago. We were providing CCTV cameras. We bought into a company called Enforce. We were providing security services, cleaning services. We had no idea of what property management was. But if you as an entrepreneur are open to learning and are open to new things that you have an interest in, you actually are able to move from the one run to the next and to the next over a period of time. So I'm trying to show you the broad spectrum of what exists here. You find a lot of companies are sitting at your hard and soft service level. There are a lot of women and men black women and men who own cleaning companies, security companies. I've got a printing company. I've got an advertising firm. I've got an events firm. We know them. There are a lot. And we need those services when you look at the supply chain that goes into property. But what I want to see more, and I would really like to encourage entrepreneurs, is the movement from that level to the next is not difficult. The next run is very much professionals though. So you heard MEC Mahlangu talking about construction. The more women construction firms we have in this country, the more we are able to actually influence where money goes and how it flows. You look at the areas, a lot of people think if you're CA, you can't be in the property sector. We employ so many CAs in our organization. Finance, legal, lawyers who are specialized in that particular area. Property managers, project managers, property developers, leasing agents, and the list goes on. You talk of quantity surveyors, you talk of architects, you talk of town planners, and the list goes on. You just need to start thinking about the scope. I actually believe that property is one of the largest and one of the broadest areas where black people at many levels can really participate and begin to create meaningful businesses for themselves. I really do believe that. There's an organization that I've worked with for a number of years called Women's Property Network. There's also another organization I'll talk about called AWIP, African Women in Property, that actually are about focusing women and helping women to expose them. I was chairperson of WPN in 2007 to 2009, and one of the things I'm most proud of that we launched was the Education Trust, where we have educated, I think, about 20 young black women in specifically property programs at Wits and UCT. We've actually contributed to their studies. We've taken them through second year all the way to the end, accommodation, whatever they require, by going to the industry and saying, we've got to be able to make sure more young black women know about these property studies. If you go to the WPN website as young women here, please do know about it, read about it, and see what opportunities you can actually accomplish there. So I've talked about the various industries. Jeff, are you standing up to tell me I must finish? Okay, cool. I've talked about the various, say no more. I've talked about the various industries. I know I talk too much. There are also broader property associations, very important for all of you to know about. SAPOA, BACPO, Qedani Mahlangu talked about it again. SACSC, CYBIB, very important CYBIB for black property practitioners. BACPO for black property owners. SAPOA, I see the wife of the chairman of SAPOA is sitting right here in our midst, Mrs. Musimeke. Women need to participate at various levels, and I think investor levels, professional and service runs, I've talked about them. The majority of us are located at the service levels and professional levels. We can begin to move up, ladies. There are so many opportunities for women to participate at those investor runs. I want to promote, for instance, DPW in some of the programs they have. EPWP, the programs in terms of being able to, when you have got the ability and the appropriate funding, to actually go there and own buildings. It's a long process, but those opportunities do exist. The critical challenge, as I've said, really is funding, and I think information. People don't have information. Information sits in a lot of different corners, and it's not shared. There are so many government policies that actually support women. I haven't talked about National Treasury and PPPs. I think some of us, if you're interested in infrastructure, you should go onto the Triple P unit's website. It's there. It's governed by National Treasury, and there's some exciting things that happen there. So essentially, that's the property value chain, as I believe it and as I see it. You've got the landlords and investors, asset managers, property managers, professional cluster, services cluster, regulatory. It's about understanding where you want to see yourself. I don't want to repeat that. That's where I believe opportunities exist. Where I said institutions, it's really your pension funds, the likes of PIC and so forth. Just the last slide, Jeff, if I may. I think I get very disillusioned when I hear people say to me, oh, you know, how do I start a business? I just want to buy into this and I want to buy into that. As I've said, you've got to build a sustainable business. It's all about deep operational capacity, deal structuring, and your ability to be flexible. People need to believe your story. People need to believe you. I've come to believe and see when we talk to investors, they actually couldn't care about what we do and how we do it. They believe in you as a person. And that is true today as it was 14 years ago when we were recruiting people who could have actually thought, hell, I could lose a job here, I could not be paid. You've got to manage organic growth, and I think that's putting the right systems in place. The winner's curse, you've got to ensure that success doesn't choke you. Sometimes we take on way too much more than we can actually handle. And that is true of many entrepreneurs, and I've been there many a time. We've made that mistake. Taken on too many clients. Service delivery goes down the hole. Don't put enough time and effort into recruitment maybe, and looking at the right people, checking out who they are, and then you get the wrong people. There's so many things I can explain. Choosing the right deals if you are going to go into investment. Cash generative investments are usually very important in the beginning, and looking at additive value chain opportunities. In conclusion, those are the 4 points that I can say. I think the commercial property sector offers interested women in immense career or business opportunities. Government has got clear policies that support black people and women. Industry bodies are there to network and to provide exposure. And I think information is critical for you to actually succeed in this area. I'm really sorry I took too much of your time, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause.